This is Dave.
And this is Jen.
And we're here for another episode of the Popcorn Theory, where we are wrapping up our trilogy of Terrifier theories, with this one being the most interesting of them all. In our previous theory videos, we dove into who or what the little pale girl is.
Some say she's a vengeful spirit linked to Art's first kill, others a demon. In our second video, we discussed the fan theories around Art being either Emily Crane's father or Sienna and Jonathan's father.
Now, in this video, we're going to discuss the possibilities about there being two clowns in the Terrifier universe, Art and the Miles County Clown, aka John Shaw. As always, we will leave it to you to decide if we're on the money with the theories or if you have a better one. So don't forget to drop that in the comments.
Over the last two Terrifier theories, we discussed the origins of the little pale girl and whom Art may be the father to, piecing together a timeline of events over the course of 3 films.
During the making of that first theory video, it hit me when I was like, oh my god, there's 2 of them. And apparently I wasn't the only one. One of our subscribers, Robert Corchado, had a similar theory. Now, to establish this theory, we will have to begin with All Hallows Eve.
Timmy and Tia return from trick-or-treating, where they discover in Timmy's hall a videotape. Against her better instincts, Sarah, the babysitter, lets the kids watch the tape, which contains an anthology of stories featuring Art the Clown.
Our first theory is about a young girl who's abducted and held captive in a dark and dingy basement of an undisclosed building, along with 2 other girls.
Casey meets her abductor, a man dressed as a Perio mime-like clown, white and black face paint with an outfit to match. But unlike the Art we know, he does not have the long crooked nose, elongated chin, rotting teeth, or chiseled facial features. He's a regular person wearing the costume and some white face paint.
There is no garbage bag full of weapons, but there is a shopping bag filled with some clown and mime accessories, a horn, and a fake flower.
This version of Art plays a trick on Casey with a fake flower that has a real bug inside of it, before injecting her with a needle and drugging her.
Now, I know you may be thinking that, well, Art's supernatural in the entire series because here we see his eyes turn yellow, but she's drugged. She's slowly passing out, and this can be a mere hallucination while she's passing out.
When Casey wakes up, Art is nowhere to be found, and eventually, after a failed escape attempt, she is brought to a group of cloaked people, or demons, gathered around another woman who is pregnant.
They hold Casey down on a table so that a horned demon can have sex with her. The same demon we see beheaded in Jonathan and Sienna's scrapbook. The clown that we see here seems to be trafficking, not killing, women. Maybe he's a pawn of the cult.
We meet Carolyn in our second story, unpacking after a recent move. She is on the phone with a friend, discussing the move and how it's a fresh start for her and John. We then learn that John is a painter whose latest painting creeps Carolyn out.
Oh, I wish you'd buy his latest painting so I can get the hell out of this house. The thing gives me the creeps.
What is it?
It's a face. It's just a horrible face. Honestly, I can't even be in the same room as this thing.
We learned that the vision for what John painted came to him after suffering from a nightmare the night before, and then he painted a portrait of Art the Clown.
Remember this for later. Sarah is driving back from Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, which is near the border of New Jersey.
Now, for those that are not familiar with this location, would be a fairly short distance from Miles County. This leads us to believe that the events that are happening in All Hallows Eve take place in Pennsylvania.
Awesome. During her drive home, Sarah stops for gas at an old rundown gas station. As Sarah looks for someone to help her, we hear a loud bang, followed by someone yelling. Art the Clown falls forward from the side of the building, followed by the gas station attendant, yelling at him to leave after Art decorated his bathroom with urine and feces.
You out of your fucking mind? Seriously, you think this is funny? You think you can just piss all over the place and smear your shit on the walls?
Art disappears into the night with his trademark garbage bag full of weapons.
And this is the Art the Clown that we all know and love. It's not the same clown that we've seen at the train station at the beginning of All Hallows Eve.
Before Sarah can settle up with the gas attendant, a loud bang comes from inside the gas station, prompting the attendant to investigate. And when he fails to return, Sarah goes to find him, only to discover that Art has returned and is sitting perched over the attendant's bloody body, removing his head with a hacksaw.
Sarah runs to her car and calls for help from the safety inside, as she quickly speeds down the road. So she thought. She drives up on a person in the distance, hitchhiking with a sign that says circus. Somehow he has found her. Sarah soon becomes distracted by her dying phone and crosses lanes into oncoming traffic and just manages to avoid a head-on collision with the white van.
Now, is the van a key to something? After pulling over to gather herself, Art appears outside of her window, causing her to speed off and leave Art behind for a third time.
If you've seen All Hallows Eve, you know what's going to happen at the end of this story. If you have not, then guess what? We're not going to spoil it for you. Go and check it out. I believe it's still on Tubi, a couple other channels. The one thing that we'll touch on, if you didn't see it, Art does get stabbed in the eye.
Seems to be a common theme.
There's a few things that are going on with 3 different stories. And we're not even talking about the 4th story, which is, you know, the babysitter and everything else that happens in that house. So, the first story, that's not Art the Clown.
Yeah.
He's a regular human. I think we all can agree on that, right?
He's just some creepy fuck in a train station.
Mm-hmm. The second one, the key thing to take away is that the boyfriend's name is John.
Mm-hmm.
Sienna and Jonathan, only seems natural that maybe that Jonathan is a junior. And then the third story, we haven't seen it in Terrifier, we haven't seen it in Terrifier 2. How the hell is Art the Clown teleporting down the road every few miles? This isn't Nightmare on Elm Street 4. She ain't driving around in a circle in her dreams.
Maybe she is.
Just saying.
I mean, it is the woods, the backwoods of Pennsylvania, right? So...
A Halloween later, Emily is murdered, and as of right now, the only murder we know of between the events of Pennsylvania and the Miles County Massacre.
As the events of the Miles County Massacre begin to unfold, we learn a few things. Art has regenerated his eye. And this is the same Art who chased Sarah and appeared to John in his dream, and not the clown who abducted Casey.
In our last theory video, we were talking about the fan theories of Art either being the father and connected to Emily, who becomes the little pale girl, or Art being connected to Sienna and Jonathan and being their father, because there is a lot of symbolism that ties all of them together.
Mm-hmm.
However, we didn't feel that much of those theories had a lot of weight to it, but during that video, we did kind of identify that possibly the cat lady and Emily are mother and daughter, which we'll come back to.
After hunting down each of his victims and being confronted by police, Art opts for an easy way out and shoots himself before being resurrected at the morgue. Another year has passed, and we are introduced to the Shaws, who are recovering from the tragic loss of their father within the past year. Jonathan is planning to dress up as the Miles County Clown, not Art the Clown.
You're dressing up as tomorrow?
The Miles County Clown.
This wasn't the only time that he said that either.
You think that guy's still out there? Who? The Miles County Clown.
Why is Jonathan referring to Art as the Miles County Clown?
I don't know. So it would make sense to me if the newspapers named him that, like they've done with other serial killers. But in the articles that Jonathan reads later on, we clearly see the killer referenced as Art, not the Miles County Clown. How does Jonathan get the Miles County Clown name? Maybe prior to the massacre, there was stories or urban legends about a clown.
Say maybe one kidnapping girls? This is not unheard of. In the streets of Chicago during the early 80s, kids feared a clown that stalked the city streets in his van, attempting to kidnap kids. The papers deemed him Homie the Clown.
Not the In Living Color Homie the Clown, and if you don't know who we're talking about, then we're old.
Yeah. Then there's the evidence. The Shaw's father's scrapbook containing newspaper clippings of not only the events that occurred a year prior, but also a clipping related to Emily's death. There is an additional newspaper clipping that we see briefly with the headline, "God Don't Live Here Anymore." Also in the scrapbook are several drawings, some of the victims and some that are rooted in fantasy, dragons, monsters, fairies, and 2 drawings that stand out, one of which does not fit.
One is of Art's head, similar to what John the Painter did in All Hallows Eve. The second drawing is of 2 nuns spanking a girl with her dress up.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that one.
Does it seem like a hobby for a person that's slowly losing his mind to the disease that he's battling? Or maybe it's somebody that's keeping score of something that he is involved in.
Listen, I know people do some crazy shit when they've got something going on up in their head, you know, like a tumor or something like that, but I mean, those are very specific drawings. A nun or 2 nuns, we're double teaming now. 2 nuns and a girl with her dress up getting spanked. I don't know, that just seems oddly specific and like something that he actually knows about.
I don't know. When I was younger, I actually kept newspaper clippings about the Son of Sam's anniversary. But I didn't draw nuns beating the...
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, like, okay, I get it. Like, you know, we have serial killer trading cards. I only
bought them because the guy at the comic book shop said that they would be worth a lot of money one day because they were quickly banned.
Well, he lied. Anyway, I mean, I'm intrigued by serial killers and how their mind works and that whole thing, but I wouldn't draw something oddly specific like 2 nuns spanking a girl with her dress up. That's like on a whole other realm.
For one, this seems like maybe it's a serial killer, as we know, keeping trophies. We've all seen Dexter and had that introduced to us.
Yeah, so maybe he doesn't have an actual picture of it happening, so he just drew it from memory.
Mm-hmm. And then the nuns again, maybe he just had a bad religious upbringing, strict parents. We've seen it in movies. It happens in real life. You know, hey, you have to follow the Bible by page after page and word after word, and you have to be a hard-nosed Christian. And this affected him in a certain way.
They do say that the Catholic school kids are the ones that go completely apeshit crazy. So
I'm normal. Speaking of trophies,
hanging in the garage is something we did not see Art use in Terrifier 2, but in the previous films. The hacksaw. Not to mention a clown mask hidden on a lower shelf.
Is it possible that the Miles County Clown is real and that he is Sienna and Jonathan's father?
Yeah, and I mean, I think he could be dubbed the Miles County Clown because they don't know the identity of him, so they're just going with the name of the county that they live in. Whereas, like Art, he leaves his calling card, right? He writes his name, so they know he's Art.
Exactly, and I'm going to continue to plant my pole on the ground and say that the Miles County Clown is only referenced by Jonathan. It's not in the newspaper articles, and it's not in the online articles. Now, can Art and the Miles County Clown be both associated with the Ninth Circle? This would explain how Art could be in 2 places at once in All Hallows Eve.
We did see Art driving a badly painted van in Terrifier 2. Now, maybe in All Hallows Eve, their father was the wheelman.
Yes, that would explain Art getting from place to place, him being on the side of the road, scaring Sarah, she almost driving into somebody that was driving that van. It almost makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta look at that van, right? It looks like somebody took a paint roller with some black paint, did the sides up, and oh man, I ran out of paint. I can't paint the hood. Now don't forget that Caroline's boyfriend or husband is named John. As I mentioned before, this could be short for Jonathan. It could be John Sr.
This may explain Barbara's animosity towards his memory in Terrifier 2. He may have been cheating on her, or maybe John and Barbara were separated, or he was planning to leave Barbara for Carolyn.
Why can't you understand? He didn't know who he was or what he was doing half the time, and this bullshit is nothing but a fucking reminder.
There's also John's diagnosis of glioblastoma.
The life expectancy for a person diagnosed with this disease is 15 to 16 months. That time frame aligns his death and diagnosis to around the time of Emily's murder. Was this a sacrifice to heal himself, or was this a sacrifice to become more powerful and it backfired, making him sick?
This sacrifice could have been what opened the portal at the carnival.
John of the Dead had a similar idea. John Sr.'s health would have deteriorated over the course of the year following Emily's death, limiting his participation in the Miles County Massacre.
He could have been on hand to chain the doors while the Art we know stalked Tara and Victoria. Then while Art is killing and carving up the cat lady, John Sr. could have been staging Tara's body with the circus sign.
I never really thought about it like that because I was just watching the movie and it's movie magic, blah, blah, blah. But those time frames are very, very close in Terrifier 1. Is, all right, well, Art's doing his business with the cat lady. Victoria's coming in. How is Tara getting set up? Right? Somebody else has to be there.
Yeah, well, it's like we talked about too, especially like when the cat lady sees that Emily's gone and knows exactly where to go. Well, then who was doing the other stuff while Art was sitting there rocking a baby and the cat lady's trying to reason with him?
And speaking of the cat lady, as we mentioned, we feel that maybe she is the mother of Emily, being that she was walking around with a doll named Emily. Makes sense that she would have gone a little crazy. And her death is what could have prompted Emily to become the little pale girl seeking revenge on the Shaws. Not only did John kill her, but now her mother is dead as well. So, here she comes. She's leading Art back to seek vengeance on the Shaws, and this would explain why you don't see her in the scrapbook. And why Jonathan and Sienna may be the only two people that are able to see her.
Now, if you think about it, Brooke mentioned that her father had become abusive.
He had like this giant brain tumor that, I don't know, it just made him do all this fucked up shit. And he was like seeing things, and he got really abusive towards the end.
And he could no longer fill his urges maybe by harming other women, so he started abusing his daughter.
Yeah. It kind of makes sense. I didn't really see it until you just kind of spelled it out there, but...
And remember, like, he drew the picture of his daughter, like, as this warrior or whatever. So I just think that there's definitely some kind of a link there, and I'm thinking, hell, we know how abusers can work sometimes, right? Like, if he can't actually do what he wants to do, then he'll just take it out on the person closest to him.
Essentially, he's an addict.
Yeah.
And he can't fill his urges.
Because he's sick.
And so who's the next closest person to him? It's his daughter.
Yeah, because it seems like him and his wife were not close. That's just the feeling that I get, whether they were separated or just not on speaking terms, I don't know. But I feel like Sienna would have been the next closest woman to him, and he couldn't kill her, so he just decides to just abuse her. I mean, that was never really, like, they didn't like really go into it, but it was just, that really stood out to me when she said that he'd become abusive.
All right, so let's recap. We have two clowns in All Hallows Eve. One who looks normal, kidnaps girls, and does not kill them.
The other with a chiseled face and leaves his name Art in blood on the walls.
Carolyn's significant other is John, also an artist who paints art.
Art is able to manifest to where Sarah is driving to, Or maybe he's being driven around by the van.
Emily's death aligning with the Shaw's father's diagnosis.
The Shaw's father has trophies, newspaper clippings, and a hacksaw.
Anti-religious clippings and drawings in the scrapbook.
The little pale girl is not in the scrapbook.
The little pale girl's presence is only visible to the Shaws since she is guiding Art to avenge her death.
Jonathan referring to another clown as the Miles County clown, not Art the clown.
So what do you think? I think it's pretty safe to say that there's two.
That's my feeling.
I have a feeling that the Shaw's father has been dirty the whole time, even though we only met him in one of the 3 films, but he certainly seems pretty wicked.
Just looking at his scrapbook, I didn't trust him. Like, I just really didn't. And you know what the thing is, too? I feel like even the drawing of his daughter was too over-sexualized. That's his daughter. And, like, she's standing there with her leg up in the air and this skimpy... I didn't like that.
The mom called it out.
Exactly. And you wouldn't draw your daughters like that, and you certainly wouldn't want another man drawing your daughters like that. So that bothered me. It did. I mean, I'm not saying he was doing any of that with his daughter, but I think that it's because where his mind was, because he was used to doing that to other girls, that maybe that's how the drawing came about. But I definitely didn't like that.
Yeah, for everybody that thought that the little pale girl was a vengeful spirit coming back as Emily, this ties the knot there.
Mm-hmm.
This is why she would come back, is because John Sr., killed her. And he's been doing stuff with the Ninth Circle all along, and that's the person that we see in the beginning of All Hallows Eve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's a wannabe.
I mean, maybe you think that we're completely off base and you have some other theory, which is great, right? We like that.
As we mentioned, we leave it to you to decide or share your theories. In fact, one person that I was talking to on the first video recently was thinking that in the next film we're going to see 4 clowns. And I told her to stay tuned to see the theory about 2 clowns. Anyway, don't forget it is the quest for 5,000 subscribers, and you can help us get there by
liking, subscribing, and sharing.
For every video that hits 100 likes, 100 comments, you will win a prize, and we're going to change that in February, so stay tuned. But when we hit 5,000 subscribers, and if you've done those things, you have a chance to win this box of Strawberries and Scream cereal.
Signed by Matthew Lillard and David Arquette.
So, this is the last popcorn theory of the year. So until the next one, see ya.
See ya.